ills that could ruin our beloved country. About the numerous concessions that have been given to the resort. One must recognize that these concessions were necessary in order to help attract the institution to Nevis. Several countries throughout the world would have been delighted to attract a hotel of such high international repute to their shores. The concessions we have granted to the resort are similar to what any of the other countries competing for investment capital would have given to lure the investors into choosing their islands to build this gorgeous structure. Despite the many concerns raised by the general public, we have not lost in the bargain. The benefits to Nevis are manifold. The hotel has already employed about 500 locals, and the unemployment rate in the Nevis economy has been reduced to virtually nil. Restaurants and other hotels on the island have been deriving substantial benefits, as a large number of guests at Four Seasons have been encouraged to dine out. During 1991, government expects to collect directly not less than over $1.5 million in accommodation tax from the Four Seasons Hotel. And in subsequent years, the amount is expected to increase to approximately $3 million. This increase in revenue will certainly help government to improve the infrastructure of the island so that we can continue to move forward to economic prosperity. Over the years, Nevisians on leaving school have been reluctant to pursue a career in the hotel industry, as much scope for development and advancement not provided in the smaller inns of Nevis. With the Four Seasons Hotel employing so many workers, government will be able to widen its education program and focus more on subject areas that will prepare our young people to take up top management positions in hotels in the years ahead. We are also hoping that the high standard of training provided by Four Seasons will filter down to the other areas in the private and public sectors, and hence improve the overall efficiency of labor in the country. Agriculture in Nevis has suffered over the years because of the inability of farmers to find a tangible market for their produce. The Four Seasons Hotel can now provide that market, at least partially. The onus is now on the farmers to improve the quality of their produce and work together with the agricultural department to exploit the opportunities that the Four Seasons Resort provides. With the opening of this resort, we do not claim to have attained the pinnacle of success. We cannot sit smugly behind the progress that has been achieved so far. The door must be kept open, and the pathway must be paved for the continuing economic advancement of this country. I am happy to report that potential investors are now being attracted to Nevis to exploit business opportunities. Government has already held preliminary discussions with another first-class hotel chain that is showing interest in starting operations in Nevis. This clearly demonstrates that the island has great potential for the future. Despite the tremendous opportunities that are being created, I must remind everyone that a key element in economic development is that the people of the country must be major participants in the development process. Foreigners can be and inevitably are involved as well, but they cannot be the whole story. Further, if growth in the economy only benefits a tiny, wealthy minority, whether domestic or foreign, it is not true development. It is our duty to ensure that the benefits derived from tourism expansion permeate every level of society. However, I must warn Nevisians that participation in the process of development does not only imply participation in the enjoyment of the benefits of development, but also the production of those benefits. In other words, one must produce first, then consume afterwards. I therefore appeal to all Nevisians to improve productivity. Some people have been criticizing the management of Four Seasons for filling most of the management positions with workers from overseas. One must recognize that the hotel has just started operating, and there is the need to fill key positions with trained and experienced workers in order to provide the high standard of service for which Four Seasons is renowned. However, the majority of these workers will be leaving after a period of 2 years, and a number of management positions will become vacant. Local people employed at the hotel must be patient and should utilize every opportunity to improve their management skills so that in the future they could prove themselves worthy and capable to take up more senior positions. I also appeal to the local businesses to start working together in order to maximize the benefits from tourism. The Nevis economy is performing fairly well, and a number of big businesses from outside are now trying to expand their operations into Nevis in order to penetrate the local market and create a niche for themselves. It means that the small local businesses could be faced with extreme competition and be forced out of the marketplace. Government is willing to offer assistance to protect the local businesses from unfair competition. But businessmen will also have to try and help themselves. It is time for the businessmen in Nevis to pool their resources and ideas together to ward off the threat posed by the large business concerns that are now setting up operations in Nevis. It is time for the service sector to improve the standard of its operations. The caliber of tourists being attracted to Nevis will need a high standard of service. If the service cannot be provided by Nevisians, then others will come in and try to take over the service industry. Let the Four Seasons Hotel be an example to all of us that we should be unstinting in our efforts to provide the standard of service which at least equals or even surpasses that of this, so that the tourists will feel compelled to book a return visit to the island even before they depart. The island of Nevis is small and has limited resources, but its people must be determined to move forward. One economist marveled at the success of Japan when he asked, how could a country with so little natural resources and about the size of one state in America develop into a world economic power? This lesson teaches us that we could be small in size and still be strong economically. But the equation of the Japanese success includes such variables as hard work, dedication, cooperation, and teamwork. Let us adopt these attributes and work together to make Nevis a better place for all. I must now take this opportunity to express the sincere gratitude of this administration to all those responsible for ensuring the success of this project. Special mention must be made of the investors, Jumes, Tobishima, and Four Seasons, who showed confidence in the Nevis Island government and readily agreed to make Nevis the first Caribbean island in which a 5-star hotel is constructed. The late Fred Kelsick and Mr. Xavier Nice, who introduced Jumes to Nevis, must not be forgotten. The efforts of former ministers of the Nevis Island administration must be commended highly. And I speak of Mr. Arthur Evelyn, Mr. Uriel Swanston, and Mr. Ivor Stevens, who were actively involved in the initial negotiations with the investors to win the contract for Nevis. Congratulations are also extended to present ministers, the Honorable Victor Martin, Joseph Parry, and Phineas Griffin, for building on the foundation provided and seeing the project to completion. The construction workers, jalters, and local contractors must also be praised for building this hotel in record time. Lastly, I must thank the people of Nevis for their patience and understanding during the time this hotel was being built. The Nevis administration has worked untiringly over the years to improve the standard of living of the people of Nevis. We have been traveling through a tunnel filled with darkness, gloom, frustration, and disappointments. But we are now seeing a ray of light gleaming in the distance. The construction of this exquisite hotel does not signify the end to all of our problems, but the yoke of despair has been partly broken, and we can look to the future with confidence as we chart the course of this country into the 21st century. Let us build on this foundation, which could serve as a tremendous catalyst to economic development in this beautiful island we call the Queen of the Caribbean. I thank you.
Nevis, lovely Nevis, and that was at the opening of Four Seasons. You're talking about Valentine's Day 1991. Voice of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel on record giving his speech at a hotel which he and his team brought to Nevis. What is outstanding is that you heard him reference that just by introducing that 196-room hotel managed by Four Seasons and employing some 500 persons, that unemployment in Nevis became a thing of the past. As a matter of fact, for the first time in years, Nevis started importing workers. Persons who had not worked in their life, and some persons who had given up on thoughts of being employed were employed at Four Seasons compliments of the Nevis Reformation Party led by Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. And he was fulsome in his praise for his team which included people like Phineas Griffin, Uriel Swanston, Victor Martin, Arthur Evelyn, Ivor Stevens, and others. Joseph Parry. And we're going to be hearing from Joseph Parry at some point in the program this evening. And he will have his own reflections, of course, on the life and times of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel and his contributions. Let me apologize right at the start for the absence of Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. She wanted to be in studio with us this evening, but she is otherwise engaged and did send her apologies. But we will definitely be hearing a contribution either from her or from a member of her family. So I didn't take you much in the 70s or the 80s. I went straight to 1991 to one of the most transformative events in Nevis, the opening of the Four Seasons Hotel. And why? Because you're talking about a hotel which opened and impacted the lives of every single person here in Nevis in 1991. And 34 years later, we have not been able to attract anything close to the 196 rooms of the Four Seasons Hotel. It's not so long ago that you can't remember the sight of Mr. Xavier Nice, this Frenchman who walked through and through the estate looking and marking areas where he wanted the development to take place. Let me go to the phone lines and say, good evening, caller.
Good evening, caller. Good story.
Mr. Parry, it is good to hear you.
Okay. Am I calling you too early?
No, you're right on time.
Okay. Yes, well, I must congratulate you on the program that they have put together on this anniversary. I was listening to the speech made by Mr. Daniel at the opening of the Four Seasons.
Still gives me chills.
And what I liked about the speech is the way he identified the need for divisions to get into business, for divisions to work together, and where he warned people that if divisions did not do that, other businesses will come forward, and we are seeing this happening today. Because divisions did not take his warning seriously, we now have many foreigners opening business in Nevis, and many businesses owned by divisions have been closed, which is unfortunate. But be that as it may, let us learn from our mistakes. I want to say, Carlo, that without patting myself on the back, I was the one who said that Mr. Daniel was the father of modern Nevis. A lot of people say it nowadays, and I'm glad that it has caught on because it is true. It seems to me, and I heard that someone questioned why should he be called the father of modern Nevis. And I was surprised because there is just no competition when it comes to that. You know, when we look at 1983 and what happened between 1983 and 1992, there's no doubt that Mr. Daniel changed the face of Nevis. He and his team revolutionized the face of Nevis. Because, of course, he could not do it by himself. But he had a good team with him in the first instance, Ira Stevens, Arthur Evil, and Earl Swanson, and then with Victor Martin, myself, and Phoenix Griffin. And let's look at why we can say that. Let's start, first of all, with the new government at Nevis. Bringing government back to Nevis in 1983 by itself was a major achievement. Because what it meant is that Nevisians no longer had to go to Finkit for things like passports, birth certificates, and other stuff like that. When that Christina went down in 1970, August the 1st, 1970, people went to Finkit for all kind of simple things. I believe that was one of the things in the minds of the Nevis Reformation Party, the founders of the party, that Nevisians need to be able to get those things here on Nevis. And so bringing government back to Nevis achieved that. I don't know how many people understand the implications of that. I don't know how many people understand that what a great achievement it was. But here it is. Now you have a premier, you have ministers of government, you have permanent secretaries. In the past, you did not have assistant secretaries in Nevis. You did not have permanent secretaries. The leading civil servant at one time was the headmaster of the Charleston Secondary School. People who wanted to get promotion in the civil service had to go to Finkit. And many of those civil servants were in the Christina in 1970 August. I know of 4 senior civil servants who were locked up in a room when the Christina went down and never got out. Men who had wives, men who had children, men who were involved in the arts and cricket, sport, all kind of activities on the island of Nevis. And at one fell swoop, they were gone. Now, the government came back to Nevis. The land reform program, Carlisle. How many people understood that Mr. Daniel and his crew set out to have the estates made available to the vision at a cheap rate? I can't remember the prices for land at that time, but they were rather low. And if you go around Nevis today, you have the estate. I can't remember all of them, but you have Hamilton, of course. You have Potworth. You have Magnus. You have Fothergill.
Nerva.
You have Even Brown. River. You have we live there, Carlo. What's that again?
Prospect.
All those areas, lands were made available to people all around the island so that they could have land for themselves. When you look at the villages, when you look at the developments around Nevis, those developments came out of the land reform program. Nevis had the #1 land reform program in the OECS. Then, of course, education, secondary education. It was under the Nevis Reformation Party that all divisions who achieved the age of 12 had to have secondary education. Again, Nevis was the first island in the OECS to ensure all children 12 and over achieve secondary school education. The Nevis Sixth Form. I remember the Nevis Sixth Form very well because I had to go to the grammar school in St. Kitts to get a Sixth Form education. And the Nevis Sixth Form made, there were about 3 of us, 4 of us, 2 of us in those days. And when the Nevis Sixth Form opened, and you were one of the first members of the Nevis Sixth Form,
Yes.
I think there were 20-something of you who were able to go to Sixth Form in 1980, 1981. And today, you see, maybe 40, 80 persons in Sixth Form. But the saddest thing for me, Carlisle, is that I don't feel that the students of the present Nevis Sixth Form understand the importance of the Sixth Form. I don't think they feel proud that they have this opportunity. When we went to Sixth Form in the grammar school, we were considered the elites of the society. We were expected to lead, to guide, and to set standards in our community. Nowadays, I don't feel that the students see themselves in that light, which is unfortunate. But what I can say though is this. When you look around, you see graduates of the Sixth Form. The present premier is a graduate of the Sixth Form. Van Samuel is a graduate of the Sixth Form. And so, well, that is not true. The present premier is a graduate of the Sixth Form. You have people like Ernie France and others who are in key positions coming out of that Sixth Form. And I would say this, that the Sixth Form has done so much for the island of Nevis in terms of creating leadership and people, captains of industry, etc., etc. So there are all these things that we should be proud of. You have the Four Seasons, which revolutionized the whole country. You didn't have a penny before the Four Seasons. When the Four Seasons came, women who never worked in their lives worked for the first time. And I always share this joke out that some of the men who had girlfriends before the Four Seasons lost them after the Four Seasons opened, because the women no longer depended on them economically. And the men just could not handle that. They could not handle the new independence that women got. But those are the kind of changes that were brought about by Mr. Daniel and the Nevis Reformation Party. The Four Seasons set the pace for the development of Nevis. Whether you like it or not, he will say this: we dropped the ball. The government changed in 1992 and the ball was dropped. A gentleman who was a former police commissioner told me he was in Angola a few days ago. And I think he said some 14 jets were on the tarmac. 14 jets. And he spoke about that they're doing some expansion right now. They receive jets every day. Nevis was at that point in 1992 when we could have had a second hotel and other hotels too, because all eyes were on Nevis. And we dropped the ball. We dropped the ball, and let me tell you, it's going to be very hard for us to move forward again. My own prediction is that geothermal will be the way, and geothermal should be the way, and could have been the way. But again, I am going to watch because I'm not sure where we're going with geothermal. The administration ensured that people were trained. Lots of people don't know, but I went to England and they were postgraduate course in public administration. So did Wendell Huggins. Nowadays, I don't hear about any training in the civil service. The civil service carries the country. The permanent secretaries are the ones that have to develop policies with ministers. Nowadays, sometimes it seems to me that ministers are permanent secretaries on their parts and their everything. And that does not augur well for the country. It does not augur well for development. No wonder we have so many problems. Because I believe that we have lost the way. The vision that Mr. Daniel had, the vision that the Nevis Reformation Party had between 1970 and 1983, to me has been lost. And we have to rekindle it. And I appeal to the people of Nevis, I appeal to the Nevis Reformation Party to get down and rekindle that image, because I am of the view that only the Nevis Reformation Party can continue to work that Simeon Daniel and his men started and did not get the chance or the opportunity to finish. So I would like to say congratulations, Carlisle. Those times were great times. Those were times of optimism and enthusiasm. Those are the days when the divisions work not for money, but for the love of country. And while I'm not sure those days can return, I hope that we can get back that feeling of loyalty to our country to move it forward. Congratulations to Mr. Daniel, congratulations to NRP, and all those who understood what it meant for peace, tranquility, and progress for Nevis.
Mr. Parry, I want to thank you for calling in, but before you leave, I have to ask you about the Bank of Nevis, because that was such a bold move at the time, and stand right there alongside Four Seasons and financial services and the land reform and so on as pivotal for Nevis.
Well, absolutely, Carlisle, absolutely. The Bank of Nevis was a private enterprise undertaken by Mr. Daniel. He was premier, of course, and because he was premier, he was able to galvanize support and get people interested. Mr. Daniel, he solely has to take credit for the Bank of Nevis, nobody else. Those of us who supported him, but we can't take credit for it. He went around and got 10 persons to invest $25,000. So the bank started with $250,000. And the division was skeptical. Most of the investors were expats. You had people there, I wouldn't call Kawaj an expat, he was some thinkers, but he was there. The Yarwoods, they were there. Then you had Mr. Griffith was there, and the owner of Hermitage was there, and then there's another gentleman living over Charles Road. These were persons who got together, gave support to Mr. Daniel, so that the bank could start. He made trips to America, he made trips to Canada, made trips to England to get Nevisians interested. And so the Bank of Nevis started. The Bank of Nevis was key to private sector development. The Bank of Nevis was able to make loans available for people to buy homes, for people to buy land, for people to buy cars, for people to invest, small business owners to invest. And today, the Bank of Nevis continues to be the major mover and shaker in the development of this country. As I speak about the Bank of Nevis, I would want to say, Carlisle, that the first directors of the Bank of Nevis, and um, Mr. I can't remember his name now, but the owner of Hermitage.
Lupinacci.
Lupinacci was the manager. Hansel Manos was the first chairman. And for 5 years, we worked without 1 cent payment. We worked for free for 5 years in the Bank of Nevis. The people in the industry remember people like Dolores Nichols, Spencer Howell and his family, Hansel Manos, Kawaja, of course, myself, all of us who made the Mr. Yarwood, all of those, Mr. Griffith, all of those who made the sacrifice to put an institution that stands tall on the island of Nevis. Sometimes when I go to the Bank of Nevis, people don't even study me. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying how it is in Nevis. You do, you make, you achieve, and then you're forgotten. We in Nevis need to remember the people who built this country. We need to remember our heroes, because the Bank of Nevis, without it, we would have been nowhere. I remember Mr. Isaac wanted to buy the Nevis Cooperative Bank, and he made moves so that the Nevis Cooperative Bank could become part of Bank of Nevis. And he was denied that effort. I'm pleased to see that today the Nevis Cooperative Bank is part of the Bank of Nevis institution. And this is where we have gone. Bank of Nevis now has a branch in St. Kitts. And I do hope that with the right personnel, with the right policies, and the right support, that the Bank of Nevis can go from strength to strength and help to drive the private sector in our country. Because without the private sector, you're going nowhere. Government can be there, but government can never be efficient like the private sector can be. And so I congratulate Mr. Daniel. I congratulate the Daniel family for that move, that initiative of establishing the Bank of Nevis on the island of Nevis.
Mr. Parry, I still need a few more words from you in financial services, and then I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, before I go directly to the offshore services, let me say this, that Mr. Daniel not only established the Bank of Nevis, but he was instrumental in getting the Bank of Nova Scotia to come to Nevis. He was instrumental in making sure a branch of the Development Bank was established on the island of Nevis. Mm-hmm. And he was also responsible for supporting the development of the Nevis Credit Union. I remember that very well because I was permanent secretary when Melvin Edwards came to Nevis with his plan to further develop the Nevis Cooperative Bank and make it what it is today. And Mr. Daniel was 100% in support of that. So he was able to establish an onshore financial sector on the island of Nevis. But the financial services, I must apologize for forgetting that. Because that was one of the major moves by Mr. Daniel. I will not go into this story so much as to mention the name of Mr. Cecil Byron, who introduced Mr. Daniel to some of the investors. There was one by the name of John Tansey and Bill Barnard. Those two were the two main investors. And they met at a Christmas party on the island of Nevis. And they were able to move from there to the development of the offshore services on the island of Nevis. People speak today about the insurance section and the offshore banking, but the point is that would have never happened if Mr. Daniel had made that move in 1984. In fact, I think Billy Herbert was the one who really understood what the financial services was all about, and who supported Nevis, because I don't think the cabinet in St. Kitts at that time was too impressed with the idea or too anxious to see an offshore sector develop on the island of Nevis. But Billy Herbert gave his support, and I thank him for that. And so today we have an industry that is still the major industry outside of tourism. So you have the Four Seasons, and you have the financial services, all done by the NRP under the leadership of Simeon Daniel, Dr. Simeon Daniel. So there's much for us to be proud, and there's much for us to celebrate. And Carla, a lot of people on the island of Nevis don't know, because they came later, they don't know. It is very important what you're doing here reaches the ears of these people. So they can know NRP has built Nevis. The Nevis Reformation Party has built Nevis.
Mr. Parry, Delta Petroleum. I keep asking you to add on, but you know our listeners and viewers out there are sharp, and they won't allow me to miss anything. So I just got a text here to say you didn't ask about Delta Petroleum and the Prospect Power Station, because the Prospect Power Station, a lot of people just assume it was there all the time. Yeah, but this is important for the history books. Tell us first of all about the Prospect Power Station and then go to Delta.
Well, let me start by telling you that the power plant was in the old library yard there where you have the old administration building. You had a 750 generator up there, an old generator up there. And that generator was pushing electricity in Charlestown and certain parts of Nevis. But there were many villages in Nevis that did not have electricity. I remember, for instance, Jessup. People in Jessup were right up since 1954. And in 1980, they had no electricity. And so when electricity did come, they had to move all those old wires and put your things in place. The electricity was uncertain, just like water was uncertain. And let me mention water so that you don't come back and tell you about water. Water was uncertain. And Mr. Daniel, with the support of Ivor Stevens and Earl Swanston, spoke to the federal government, petitioned the federal government, reached out to the British Development Division to ensure that a new station was established over Prospect with two 920 kilowatt generators. And from there, they were able to spread electricity right around the island, so that 96% of the homes in Nevis had electricity. This was done between 1980 and 1992. I remember December 1980, when the airport was lighted, Frank DeLille, a gentleman who was involved in the formation of LEAT, came to Nevis at the behest of Mr. Daniel and Mr. Stevens, and he and a few other persons had put down the electricity and had the airport, the runway lighted. Mr. Daniel was on the first plane that landed when they were lights. Mr. Stevens was there. I was there, and I think Mr. Earl Swanson was there. That was such a glorious time, because if you remember in 1970, the Christina went down, they had to send cars over there for a plane to land with Dr. Simmons so he could come and help. So that in itself was historic. But then, so you had the light on the airport, and you had electricity with a new plant over Prospect, which is still there. And there has been expansion in terms of new turbines and generators. But that was done by the Nevis Reformation Party. Now, what's the other thing?
Delta Petroleum.
Well, you know, in those days, we had problems from time to time with, for Prospect, for the power plant. And we were threatened from time to time that supplies would not be given unless we paid a fund, because in those days we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, with all our administration started $250,000. And really and truly, the money was never given to Mr. Daniel, because he was Minister of Finance and the money was there in the bank. He took it up. He took it up and used it to start the administration. Nobody ever gave the Nevis Island administration any money. Mr. Daniel took the $250,000 or the 250,000 EC dollars, not even $100,000 to start up the administration. So we were always under pressure I mean, of course, people use that against us and laugh and ridicule and so on. They don't understand. They don't understand the difficulties that the NRP suffered at that time. You had a country that they had very little business, very little revenue, and so it was hard. It was hard to get money to finance operations. And there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Lake, who was in division, who, by the way, family owned the building where the Bank of Nevis is, and he sold it to the Bank of Nevis at a good rate. And Mr. Lake, he's still alive. I think he lives in St. Lucia. Mr. Lake decided that he was going to help his island neighbors, and he was working for Delta Petroleum, and he was able to establish Delta Petroleum here in Nevis, to establish a line direct from where Delta Petroleum is located at Long Point, right up to the power plant. And up to today, you have that line feeding Prospect, and we don't have the problem that we used to have in the past. So that, again, another great achievement. But tell me, Carlisle, is there any reason why anybody can challenge the point that Mr. Daniel was a father of modern Nevis? It seems to me that every division, man, woman, boy, and girl, should together agree, without exception, that he was the father of modern Nevis.
Mr. Parry, I want to thank you so very much for going on the record tonight. I know you didn't expect to spend all of 25 minutes with me, and you have only just touched the surface of some of the contributions of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel and the impact that he had on Nevis, and in fact established himself as the father of modern Nevis. Thank you again, Mr. Parry.
My pleasure, Carlisle.
Okay, that was Joseph Parry, former Premier of Nevis, going on record about the contributions of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. We have a lot more. Again, let me give you the numbers that you're going to use if you want to call in and make a contributions. We have a couple of tapes to play, and when we are playing them, we'll give you the time so you have an idea as to how long they will run so that you won't call during that period. 917-460-2187, 669-7312, 469-7953. We are talking about life and times of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel and his contribution and impact on Nevis. Let me go to a tribute, which is in the funeral booklet, and a tribute that was penned by the man who we just heard, the Honorable Joseph W. Parry. And I'll just read 2 paragraphs. The advent of the Four Seasons Resort, again under his leadership, brought about unprecedented economic and social changes. It can only be understood if we were able to visibly compare pre-1980 to present-day conditions. But most importantly, at its independence, 1983, he brought government to Nevis again. That single act stands by itself as monumental. It is responsible for every iota of development in whatever form that has taken place over the ensuing 29 years. Quiet, unassuming, soft-spoken, sometimes even shy, he achieved an economic and political revolution in the face of adversity with an almost empty treasury and very difficult circumstances. He has passed on, but his record and deeds will be forever etched in the annals of our history. And that's Premier Parry in his tribute to Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. We'll be here until 8:30, and we will be allowing you the opportunity to call and to share your thoughts on Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel very much vilified when he was alive. I remember having opened the Four Seasons Hotel back in 1991, that he lost the election in June of 1992. You know, sometimes I feel like David Rudder penned in a song that Nevis is still paying for the sins of that criminal act of replacing a man who had done so much for Nevis. Let's go to the phone lines and say hello, good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening, Carla.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. This is Ingrid, the youngest daughter of Sir Simeon.
So good to hear you. Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to call in to tell you thank you so much for what you're doing, because it really means a lot to us. However, listening to those speeches got me choked up. But, you know, I do appreciate what you're doing, and, you know, to educate the youth of Nevis so that they know the history of the NRP and what was done before a lot of them were probably, the voting public was probably born. So I just appreciate what you're doing. I don't really have a lot to say because I actually left Nevis on the day of the election in 1980 when NRP won.
Okay.
So I wasn't there for a lot of, you know, the development and everything, but visiting, you know, throughout the years, I could see everything that was being done and the improvements that were made, you know, and I just want to say that, you know, my father was a humble man. He was a visionary man. He loved people, and he would give the shirt off his back if someone needed it. I'll give you a little story that I told actually at the opening of the museum. When I was about 5 years old, I used to work in his law office, and every Saturday I was sent to the bank to get cash. And there were lines of people that would come up just to collect money. And I would ask Mrs. Hull, I'm like, Mrs. Hull, why is Daddy giving all these people money? And she was like, well, a lot of them don't have, and he's giving to them because he can give to them. And I used to think, like, when I asked for stuff, it was like, you know, you don't need this, you don't need that. But I'm like, he's giving people money like this? So it was really, when I became an adult, I realized the type of man he was and the impact that he made. And, you know, he just made us realize that we should always respect people and understand that people may have it not as good as you, but you don't have to disrespect people and think that you're better than anyone. That was one of the main things that he always taught us. You're not better than anybody else. And so I just want to say again, thank you, Carline, for what you're doing. And I hope that the people of Nevis, you know, like Mr. Parry said, could all agree that he is the father of modern day Nevis. Thank you.
Ingrid, I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And listen, for the 2 weeks before we started putting the show together, I sat home and replayed his speeches and reflected on the way that he has impacted Nevis. And I said it would be a shame to let the date pass without doing something and refreshing in people's minds what a giant of a man he was. And so we're here to share thoughts and to get people to do some reflections, because there is no question about it. No single person has had a greater impact on Nevis than your dad. So thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you again for doing this.
Okay, great. Okay. Youngest daughter of national hero, Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. And we have until 8:30. We'll be sharing thoughts. We'll be playing some of his speeches. And we'll be reflecting on the life and times of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. I read a little piece from one of the tributes that was paid in the funeral booklet. So I'm going to read another one. It is impossible to pay tribute to a man who has given so much to so many. Mere words cannot begin to capture even a hint of the essence of this man from humble beginnings in Barnsgot, who rose to bestride the socio-political landscape of Nevis like a colossus. He has touched every facet of Nevisian life and has shaped and inspired generations of Nevisians. I, for one, would not be who I am today were it not for the inspiration of Dr. Simeon Daniel. He was as a father to me, and I as a son to him. He was the architect in every sense of modern Nevis, and gave Nevisians an island and an ethos to be proud of. He instilled in us a national pride and patriotism of our beloved homeland, which shall endure forever. Whether it was the Sixth Form College, the Nevis Island Assembly, the Nevis Island Administration, the Office of the Premier, the achievement of substantial internal self-government, insisting on Clause 113 of the Constitution, the Four Seasons Resort, the Mount Nevis Hotel, the Bank of Nevis, the Nevis Reformation Party, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, the dramatic improvement in water and infrastructure for the island, the university degrees for Nevisian teachers from a Miami University. Dr. Simeon Daniel touched the lives of us all. While his public achievements are well known, his private help for so many families in need is no less legendary for those who benefited from his generosity and kindness. So selfless was Dr. Daniel that he always and without murmur put the welfare of others ahead of his own. On Sunday, the 27th day of May 2012, Nevis lost not just a man. On that day, we lost a part of what makes us Nevisians and what defines us as a people. I know not when again that our fair land will see such a man, such a champion of and for the Nevisian people. And this was penned by the present Premier, Mr. Mark Brantley. We take a little song break, but before I do that, I just want to reflect that words like those are important. I didn't hear any of those words in 1992 when the NRP lost. And when not too far from us, CCM finished their parade with a 4-foot black monkey that they labeled Sim Daniel. They are still to ask for forgiveness for that unpardonable act. Never heard anybody in the leadership of CCM say that that was wrong. I've never heard them say an apology for putting on record for political gain that Sim Daniel demanded 20% of every project that came to Nevis. It was the furthest thing from the truth. But they said it and they did it for political gain. I'm not going into the negatives tonight, but you got to put those things on record. I have to let people know. Because when that happened back in 1992, it was wrong. It still is wrong. It should never have happened. But you get closure when you ask for apology and you apologize. When you ask for forgiveness and you apologize. Listen, we're not even going to the song break because we have some things to do before 8:30. So let us get Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel on record as he details the achievements of the Nevis Reformation Party. This one is going to take me about 15 minutes. So hold your calls until just after 7:30. Let's get Dr. Daniel on record in his exit speech from 1992.
For the average Nevisian who 1970 is a long way away for the youngsters, can you just indicate to them what life was like back then in terms of the utilities, electricity, water, the roads, and what NRP had to fight for and establish in the early days?
I think the best way to go about that is to let me repeat my official exit speech from active politics.
Sure, go right ahead.
In June. Greetings, fellow Nevisians. This is the voice of the Nevis Reformation Party, through me, who has the honor and privilege of addressing you through the kind courtesy of One Radio. There are so many false rumors in circulation that it is virtually important for us as a party recently out of government to set the record straight. As you are aware, elections to the Nevis Island Assembly took place on Monday, June 1st, and our party and government lost 3 seats to 2. This is what democracy is all about. And of course, we abide by the results. The people have opted for a change of government, and that is their right in a democratic society. Superimposed on this election defeat was the sudden and tragic passing of the late Deputy Governor General Mr. Weston Paris, MBE, and we join with all the people of the Federation in mourning the loss of one who was uniquely blessed, a son of the soil with unusual and multifaceted talents. He lives in our hearts. Now that the noise and tumult have died down somewhat, it is time for us as a party and as a people to get our thoughts together and consider seriously the past, the present, and the future. Where do we go from here? For life must go on, and together we must achieve our stated triple goals of peace, progress, and prosperity. We tender sincere thanks to those who have supported us in the past and who voted for our candidates at the recent election. Because of this, we polled more votes than the opposition. We congratulate the Concerned Citizens Movement on their victory at the polls. And in particular, there are 3 successful candidates. Although we are no longer in government, we shall still keep a close watch on the way in which the country is being run. It is our duty, even though now in opposition, not merely for the sake of opposition, but with the welfare of all our people in mind. It is important to remind listeners that although our party has been in existence for almost 22 years, we have only been in government for 12 years, from the 12th of January 1980. It was only 9 years ago that we achieved actual self-government for Nevis. That is in 1983. And we were in a position to make and carry out plans for our beloved homeland, Nevis. Our record speaks for itself. It is a record of which we can be proud. Some of our record achievements over the years are as follows. In telephone, there are now over 2,000 lines. In cable TV, there are some 1,500 connections all around the island. Up to 1980, it was an offense to have a television in your home. And we brought the first cable TV company here in Nevis. In tourism, the number of rooms have doubled and some 600 new jobs have been created. The Housing and Land Development Corporation has developed lands at Hard Times, Fothergills, Prospect, Potworks, and some 600 Nevisian families have already purchased their lots. In agriculture, New River, Catesby, and Nisbet's estate have been developed, and we are now able to supply most of the hotels with their produce. I'm talking about 1992. In recreational facilities, cricket fields have been improved at Charlestown and Cotton Ground. Also, new ones were built in Brown Hill, Jessops, and Fountain. Basketball and netball courts have been constructed in Cotton Ground, Brown Hill, Old Manor, Bricklin, Bath Village, and Barnesgate. And lands have already been acquired at Hickman's, Hanley's Road, and Jessops for the construction of new courts. In education, there is free education for all. A new multi-purpose training center has been recently opened. A sixth form college has been provided. All the primary schools, with the exception of Combermere, are government-owned and equipped with modern facilities. There are preschool training centers all over the island. Some are owned by government and some privately owned. However, all are supervised by the Ministry of Education. Adult education programs have been started all over the island. 6, the level of teacher training has been unprecedented in the history of Nevis. In October 17, that is last year, 17 students graduated with AA degrees from Miami-Dade Community College at a cost of $250,000 to government, and this was to provide qualified workers at the Four Seasons Hotel. Last month, 21 teachers graduated with Bachelor of Science degrees in education from the University of Miami at a cost of $600,000 to government. These persons are being paid at the appropriate scale with no demand to pay back government any money. There are some 21 divisions abroad in universities and other educational institutions studying various subjects. During the period under review, over 20 students have completed their courses of study and are back here at work. Much noise is being made over small grants made to certain needy people, victims of hurricane who were overlooked, but whose names were verified by the Community Affairs Development to assist in getting them sheltered from rain and keeping the cold winds out of their humble homes. We get praise for helping the educated and those who are not too badly off, but we get blamed for helping the poor and the needy. In the field of infrastructural development, our record is unbelievably impressive. In 1981, a 720 kilowatt generator was bought. Between 1983 to 1987, 2 920 kilowatt generators were bought. In 1988, a 2 megawatt generator was purchased for $3 million. In 1992, another 2 megawatt generator was purchased. Both of these 2 megawatt generators have been acquired on a higher purchase basis. Funds to the tune of $1 million have already been secured for the expansion of upgrading of the outside plant and electricity lines. Our water development program has the staggering record of providing the following villages with a 24-hour supply: Brown Hill, Bath Village, Hanley's Road, Bricklin, Butlers, Newcastle, Barnaby, Cotton Ground, Jessops, Barnesgate, Fountain, and Westbury. New water mains have been provided in Charlestown. New reservoirs were built at Rollins, Hamilton, Brown Pasture, Mount Lily, Fothergills, and Jessops. In 1992, work has already started on providing water to the remaining villages of Cox, Beaumont, and Pond Hill. When these are completed, every village in Nevis will have a 24-hour-a-day water supply. In roads, Funds have been already negotiated for the revamping of the Nevis Island Main Road from the Caribbean Development Bank. Other roads have been repaired and constructed all over the island, too numerous to mention. I'll repeat that paragraph. In roads, funds have already negotiated for the revamping of the Nevis Island Main Road from the Caribbean Development Bank. Other roads have been repaired and constructed all over the island, too numerous to mention. In seaport development, funds for the study of the seaport were secured by us from the Caribbean Development Bank. Work is already in progress. The airport, I am obliged to emphasize the Newcastle Airport project, and that project has been approved contrary to statements made otherwise. We had lengthy discussions with the European Development Fund representatives. We have discussed 4 options and chose the first one, which was the expansion of the runway in the direction of Newcastle Village. Let me state that the European Development Fund was prepared to accept no other option and advised us that in no way would they be involved in the demolition of Hurricane Hill. The funds to construct the runway are available, and this is known at federal as well as Nevis level. The danger is if the project is not pursued immediately, the funds would be transferred to another island in the Caribbean. In the private sector, Nevis was established as a financial center by enacting the Nevis Business Corporation Ordinance in 1984. Morningstar Holdings Limited commenced operations, and we are indebted to Morningstar Holdings for their contribution in helping to establish Nevis as a financial center. In 1985, 9 persons along with myself established the Bank of Nevis Limited, an institution which revolutionized banking practices in Nevis. Today, the bank is one of the leading financial institutions in the Federation. The Four Seasons Resort, the only 5-star hotel in the Caribbean, with a Trent Jones Championship golf course, was opened, employing over 600 persons. Nevis, which had one of the largest unemployment rates in the Caribbean, became an importer of labor. All of the small inns of Nevis expanded their operations. The Caribbean Cove and Botanical Gardens were established. The Mount Nevis Hotel and Estates was opened. The Grace University Medical Institution was opened. The Nevis Philatelic Bureau was established, and the Bath Hotel was purchased by the first deposit made by the Nevis Philatelic Bureau. A contract was signed, and a deposit was made towards the purchase of Penny's Estate. Let me repeat that. A contract was signed, and a deposit was made towards the purchase of Penny's Estate. You will hear how much we had to pay then. Delta Petroleum Limited established a plant in Nevis. I appeal to one and all to let good sense prevail. The election is over, so let us get our airport expanded. We cannot continue to find scapegoats and blame others when we make mistakes. Now is the time to face reality. Now is the time to put aside partisan politics and behave like true citizens of our country. On a personal note, I beg to announce that I have decided to step down as party leader, a post I have held for the past 22 years. The Honorable Joseph Parry has been elected to serve as interim party leader until there is a formal election at our party convention. I feel certain that all our party supporters and well-wishers will rally around our new party leader, congratulate him, and respect his considerable personality and political ability. And above all, continue to support our party. My party, the Nevis Reformation Party, which has literally brought Nevis out of darkness into glorious light. May God continue to bless us as we put our hands and our lives into his gracious keeping with full assurance that he sees all, he knows all, and provides for all of us, his children. Thank you.
The voice of the late Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, national hero of St. Kitts and Nevis, as part of an interview that we did 19 years ago, come June. And I remember very quietly asking him for an interview because he called in on a show that I did on a Wednesday. And he called just when we were closing down. The show was scheduled to end at 10. And he called about a minute to 10. And I allowed him to speak and invited him to call back so we could do an interview. And he was a little hesitant. But when he finally called the day, I was as unprepared as anything. It wasn't showtime, it was high afternoon. If I remember correctly, it might have been close to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said to him, give me a minute. Let me run outside and get my pad because I've scribbled some questions for areas for discussions. And he said to me, if you leave, I'm not holding on, I'll hang up the phone. And so we did an unscripted interview for 2 years. For 2 hours, beg your pardon. And out of that came this, where he placed on record the accomplishments of his government from 1983 to 1992 June, when he lost the election. And he stepped away from politics. And then in 2006, on the eve of the elections, he called in and put on record the achievements of his government. Wonderful. Let me read a little piece from the tribute to the Honorable Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, scripted by the then Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy A. Simmons. And it reads, I am deeply saddened by the passing of my colleague and friend, Sim Daniel. He was without doubt the most significant historical figure in the development of Nevis. He fought resolutely and without retreat against the neglect of Nevis by the Bratcher administration of his day, but he later catapulted Nevis to a level of development which laid the foundation for a vibrant and progressive Nevis, which would join the family of nations as an equal partner in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I first met Sim Daniel in my capacity as a doctor when I returned from postgraduate studies in Pittsburgh in December 1969. My first impression of him was of a quiet, soft-spoken, friendly, and gracious man. He was at the time the registrar of the Supreme Court. That initial encounter certainly did not prepare me for the other side of his personality, the determined, courageous, and unrelenting advocate for the people of Nevis. He was a dedicated and stalwart champion for the people of Nevis and for the development of Nevis. He fought fearlessly and relentlessly against domination of Nevis by St. Kitts, to the extent that appeared to become inflexible in his quest for secession for Nevis at all cost. However, when, following the elections of 1980, he recognized the opportunity for him to catapult Nevis to significant development, he put the best interests of the people of Nevis first, ahead of his own personal views and agreed to lead the NRP into coalition with the PAM. As a result of his decision, the inextricable bond of blood and heritage between the people of St. Kitts and the people of Nevis was strengthened, and we were able to move forward together to independence as one nation under God. Herein lay the greatness of the man, Dr. Simeon Daniel. He put the people of Nevis first. He was equally responsible for taking St. Kitts and Nevis proudly into nationhood. He would be remembered as a leader who was prepared to lead, prepared to seize the moment, one who recognized, like Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, that there is a tide in the affairs of men, which, when taken at the flood, leads unto fortune. He was also, however, a leader who held himself accountable to the electorate. One of his first acts after we negotiated the establishment of the coalition in 1980 was to face the people of Nevis and explain his decision and ask for their support and continued confidence in his leadership. It would be a grave injustice to his legacy if he were to be remembered solely as a champion for Nevis. Sim embraced the independence of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. He was the first Minister of Finance of the Federation and represented St. Kitts and Nevis with distinction at home, in the region, at the World Bank and other international organizations. As Minister of Finance for our newly independent nation, he served all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis with fairness, prudence, and accountability. Simeon Daniel was a patriot, a fearless champion, but he was also a gracious and respectful man. He gave respect where it was due, and his life demanded respect in return. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis has lost one of its greatest sons. My wife Mary and my entire family join with me in extending deepest condolences to Sheila and other members of the family. May his soul rest in eternal peace. And those are words of Dr. the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy A. Simmons. We're reflecting on the life and times of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, who left us on this date in 2012. Phone lines are open, so if you want to have a say, you can reach us at 469-7953, 669-7312, 917-460-2187. And we're going to be here until 8:30. Here is Simeon Daniel in his own words.
This is something for the young people, and I hope they're listening, and I hope they hear, and I hope they understand. Because if they do not do something about it now, and they go out there and they vote for system and put back in another system government, then God help them. What we're seeing now is that, okay, the CCM guys, they're getting richer, but the poor, they're getting poorer. And they like that.
Mr. Powell.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Powell. Mr. Honorable Simeon Daniel. He brought light, water, and roads to Nevis. He brought Four Seasons. He brought Mount Nevis. I could remember very well when I went to Four Seasons to work. I went down there to clean and clear. This area is going to be like 18-hole golf course. I was getting the opportunity to walk on that 18-hole golf course at Four Seasons. And if Nevision will say that NRP haven't done anything for Nevis, they are lying. Mr. Daniel, willing to work, he bring education, he bring agriculture, he bring health, he bring tourism. All of these was done under the Nevis Reformation Party. And wheresoever he is tonight, God bless him, keep him and strengthen him. And not only him alone, but guide the Nevis present Reformation Party. Mr. Daniel has done well, he and the Nevis Reformation Party. I could remember again, he and the Right Honorable Kennedy Simmons in 1984. They brought the CVI program together, where the CVI program get today. Other government come in office and they only mold it up. But it's Mr. Daniel and Mr. Simmons brought the CVI program where it is now. So if people going around and saying this and saying that, they don't know what they're saying. Thank you very much, and may God bless you, sir.
Before you leave, you tell people that you worked at Four Seasons, but you didn't tell them that you were an expert bulldozer operator.
Okay, thank you very much. I work at Four Seasons. I am an expert. I know what I'm doing.
Tell them was that just bush, and you were an expert operator who helped to clear.
Just bush, and they give me a plan. Say, look, we want this whole place clear. How much months will it take to clear it? I say, well, it's going to take me some time. It's going to take me some time, but I will get the work done. And when the boss man, when Mr. Pacer Gregory came back, he said, David, you do this? Yes, I finished what I supposed to do. Then they lay out another foundation. When we start to cut the golf course, that was the major thing. Licks, I get blows, but I learn what I know. Mr. Powell and the nation, I can't forget, and I will not forget. Thank God for NRP. Thank God for Sim Daniel, because he set a tone to me at Four Seasons. When I left Four Seasons, I could have go and purchase and buy my own equipment, but I chose not to. I going to continue with my livestock farm, and I would look at the situation. Many of the recreation ground, look at the Gingerland Primary School recreation ground. Look at Jessup recreation ground. It's I who cleared them recreation ground there.
them how it is right now. The Crowley over in Crowley, Crowley is that at Crowley. You started the place that cut it down. This is the water netball court there. I went there, spent many weeks there, get out them stone, put it good. Some time ago, this CCM came and there was some little work there. I don't even know what I'm doing now. I know what I'm doing, and I could go now. I'm much older, and I could go now and jump on any one of them machine there and show them who is operator from who is operator.
Caller, thank you very much. We have somebody else holding on the other line, so we'll cross over to that call. Thank you very much. Good evening, caller. Thanks for holding.
Yes, good evening, Carlisle. Ivor Henry here, and I'm happy to lend my voice to this reflection. And I commend you and others who would have brainstormed and came up with such a brilliant idea. I must say a pleasant good evening to Mr. Parry, who I dare say would have walked in the footsteps of Mr. Daniel. I'll begin here. Since I lived it, I've seen many moves. Mr. Daniel wasn't given anything on a platter, like some people may have thought. Yes, he was a young, brilliant young lawyer coming out of England, but gun work were being done. I remember the Wilmot Nichols and those guys who was talking politics, and of course the Ivor Stevens and the Ron Liebert and those guys. But the brilliance of the guy, for whatever reason, propelled him to the leadership, and he accepted it and led with distinction. Now, the reason I said he didn't get it on a platter, he had work to do, because Nevis, as much as we were saying Bradshaw and calling him names and labor, we still have to fight Pam, because there was one Fred Parrish that was representing Pam who was winning on a Pam ticket. So he had work to do, not only from the Labour front, but from the Pam front. And then not only that, he had to fight a popular Eugene Walwyn. He was the Heffertour back in the days, big time, big shot lawyer as well. And he was in the arms and bosom, even though he was UNM, his party, he was slash Labour. Mr. Daniel and NRP had to fight through those. So people have to know the real history. Now, another thing you have to fight through, and I want this to settle, where people understand that the precedent has been set. Mr. Ivor Stevens won the seat to the federal parliament. Before him, he lost. But he remained the leader. And at no time, Mr. Stevens would have said, I got elected to the federal government, therefore I should be the leader. As we had some shenanigans after that. But I said that, make sure he got that in. That was the power of the man. He did not win the federal election, but he remained the leader, and NRP held the fort, knowing this man is our leader. Now, when that airport was renamed, I felt it in my gut that Mr. Amway name could have been on that. I'm not sure he should have been renamed, but I'm saying that was another gut-wrenching for this man. He has been through it. They said, after God is man, I believe that man might very well be Mr. Daniel.
Hello? Hello?
Mr. Daniel let it know that we needed more autonomy. And it played out to the very end while he was there. Because at no time, he showed Senkis people. I was so against Senkis that I wanted to go. What he did, he joined with the government for a better Nevis and a better Senkis. Now hear this again. He was punched in the gut again by the same time when they had enough seats to do without him, because you rightly said he was the first financial person there. He had the purse. So this guy took it on the chin so many times. But worst of all, you said it a while ago. You saying a man of his stature, referring to him as a monkey. But they did worse. Carlisle had a casket.
I remember.
Well, a living legend. He has taken it in the gut time and time again. So I'm speaking to all of the voters, people who live in Nevis and those who are now coming. They need to know these things. The father of Nevis, Mr. Daniel, who have taken it, like Christ has gone on the cross with his nail-scarred hands for our sins. He has done it. And we ought to repay the Nevis Reformation Party for all that this gentleman has gone through. And I'm speaking on two fronts. He's my blood family, and he's a true Nevisian to the heart. So I'm speaking from my gut, knowing that what I'm saying here is the gospel truth. The gospel truth. Thanks again. I'll continue to listen.
Ivor, I want to thank you very much for your contribution to the show this evening. And it must be placed on record. There were so many families around Nevis who got land at the princely sum of $6,000 for an acre. Those who couldn't afford an acre got a half an acre for $3,000. You just think about the price of land today. And the funny thing about it, when the land reform program carried out by the Nevis Island administration, led by Dr. Simeon Daniel, when that was happening, and they were going around the island encouraging people, families who had been squatting for ages, listen, $6,000 for an acre of land. Go and make your purchases. From that $6,000 for the acre, you can subdivide. So many families were living right up next to one another, just squatting. Go and make the purchases. You know what CCM said? Especially in Gingerland, you know what they told the people of Gingerland? Don't buy the land. NRP selling you too expensive. Vote for us. When we win, we're going to sell you cheaper. Well, the $6,000 an acre land went to $18,000 and then to $32,000. You figure. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Powell, and how are you?
I am blessed.
Praise the Lord. I call in tonight to share, my little thought or my little, what should I call it? My little time with Mr. Simeon Daniel. Because as a young girl growing up in Jessups, I remember the days when my mother would sit by the roadside. She used to do trafficking, where she used to go to St. Kitts to sell mangoes and, different foods just to make a living. And Mr. Daniel played such a great role in our lives. Mr. Daniel's father, which is Job Daniel there in Bansburg, he used to look the mangoes from Tower Hill and store them in a room. And then my mother would go up with her baskets, and her bath pan and fill these utensils, with mangoes just to bring back and carry to St. Kitts, to make $1. Of course, we had to pay Job, his father. But Mr. Daniel would make sure that he come up the road every Thursday afternoon because my mother is going to St. Kitts on Friday. And he would pick her up, she and some more, that were doing the same job. And he would take them to Barnesgut in his little Jeep that he had with those baskets of mangoes coming back. And he would carry them in my mother's yard, right in the house, put them in the house so that my mother can get $1, to feed her children because it was a lot of us. So Mr. Daniel was a great help to us. And I want to say thank him today because of what he did. Not only that, but when he brought the Four Seasons to Nevis, many persons may not know, I work with the contractor, which was Jaltas, a company out of Canada that was building the hotel. And they had many subcontractors. They had Phinox from Trinidad with about 600 workers. You have Ear Echalo, the electrical company. He had different companies and a lot of subcontractors, you know, here in Nevis, people like Norwell, Lescott, many of them got jobs. So it was hundreds, maybe over thousands of people going home every Friday afternoon with a big fat check because of Mr. Simeon Daniel. I used to prepare those checks to give to all those subcontractors, you know, and it was a pleasure to see how they used to spend money, man. Money was spending in Nevis like crazy. Money was on the street of Nevis. Every home in Nevis today can say, because of Mr. Daniel, they have a house. Every one of them, because most of them went to Four Seasons to work. Who did not work on the project, they work in the hotel. Every home in Nevis today own a car, was driving the streets of Nevis because of Mr. Daniel, Simeon Daniel. He did all of that for the good people of Nevis. You know, and I just want to thank him today. I could never be ungrateful to the greatest party in Nevis, the Nevis Reformation Party that Mr. Daniel was the head of. I could never be ungrateful. I will always support them because I remember, you know, all the wonderful things that Mr. Daniel did for us. Not only Mr. Daniel, but Mr. Parry came and walked right in his footsteps. Mr. Parry used to visit my mother home because, you know, you had the poorer class and the upper class and the middle class. And we were right down there to the bottom. And Mr. Joseph Walcott Parry would come in my mother's house when she outside frying the Johnny cake and the coal pot and the sprat to feed her children. And whatever little contribution Mr. Parry made, you know, could have afforded at that time. He made it to my mother and they make sure that we had a meal. Thank you, Mr. Joseph Parry. I could never be ungrateful to you. And not only that, but Mr. Parry went on further when he had his daughter Petal. And so many of them in St. Thomas's, you know, along with my daughter, took them out. When they want to go out, his transportation was filled with over maybe 10 of them. I don't know how they hold in that car, you know, but Mr. Parry took them out. And today some of them turn ungrateful to him. But Mr. Parry is a great man. He buy ice cream for them. He gave them money in the pocket. He did everything, take them to parties and pick them up and make sure that they came back home. Put them in their mother house. Huh? Great man, Mr. Parry, thank you for looking out to Delca. Not only that, but you make sure that they get a good education. And today, look at them today. Who ain't lawyers, doctors, nurses, accountants, everything they are today because of you, Mr. Parry, and the great party, Nevis Reformation Party. And Nevis only flourish and look green when NRP is in power. That's the only time Nevis flourish. You know, because of that great party. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. God bless your soul. Thank you, Mr. Parry. And I will always support you. God bless them both. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And condolences to you and your family and the loss of your brother. What a fine endorsement. Listen, we should finish at 8:30. This segment of the show, we're paying tribute to Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. And I'm asking you to hold your calls again because I am not going to come on this show and pay tribute to Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel without playing the eulogy at his funeral that was delivered in Victor J. Martin style. It would be an injustice if we didn't play the eulogy. So hold your calls again because we're going to play the eulogy now.
Walk to an unwelcome graveside. To the children, you who were an oasis of privacy to a father who spent his time in the glare of public scrutiny, and to all other members of the Daniel family, I adopt the greeting employed by the Apostle Paul in his famous letter to the Galatians. Grace be to you and peace from Almighty God and from our Lord Jesus Christ. To the family, the nation stands with you. For we know and we understand that when melodies are gone, God has a song. Family, I bring you a message from all the sons and daughters of Nevis, here in the homeland and abroad throughout the diaspora. The Nevisian people thank you for sharing the life of so great a man with all the nation. We remind you that Almighty God is our keeper, deliverer, and friend. And we say to you that in this hour of darkness, in this moment of sorrow, an omnipotent God is still able, still has the power to move mountains and to hide you from the rain. In the small and cozy village of Barnsgate, on the 22nd day of August in the year of grace 1934, Job and Melvina Daniel, with pride and joy, gave thanks for the arrival of a son. It was a Wednesday. Some of the elders in the village have noised an account of the naming of the boy. It is said that Job was a good and faithful Anglican. Job was also to become a prominent facilitator of tea parties throughout the island. Nevis people will understand that Job loved the canticles. The word was that he was fascinated in particular by the canticle known as Nunc Dimittis, or the Song of Simeon, derived from the book of Luke, in which the apostle tells the story of the occasion when Mary and Joseph took the baby boy to be baptized. A worshiper named Simeon was there, and he intoned these words, set out in the Book of Common Prayer, known to Anglicans everywhere. Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word, for mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, to be a light to enlighten the Gentiles, and to be the glory of thy people. It was Job's vision that this son would come to do grand things and to be the glory of his people. Job named his son Simeon. That son, Simeon, came to possess an amazing majesty of character. Sim Daniel, truth be told, grew up in humble circumstances, but poverty was no match for his dreams. He once told me, walking on the Bay Road towards Fortlands in Bastia, that he would read anything, everything, and then he would imagine that Nevis could become those places of which he read. He regaled me with tales of walking from Jessops to Barnsgate, and instead of the coconut trees, he would see the House of Commons on the Thames River in London. Sim Daniel was a complex man. He was known to assign persons to compartments of business, professional, or personal relationships, and few were they who could straddle all of these areas of his life. But with all persons, this was a man who showed a gracious humility and a charming dignity. Put simply, this man touched lives. This was a man who touched and changed lives, countless lives. Sim Daniel was so fiercely proud to be a Nevisian. He understood and loved everything good about this land. The history, the humor, the food, the language, especially the simple expressions of slang. A good example, take it easy, Mr. Swanston. He loved the dominoes, the beach, the fishing boats, goat farming, kite flying, the big drum, the masquerade, Christmas sports, the friendliness of the Nevisian people, this St. Thomas's Church on a hill. He loved Nevis cricket. He loved the magisterial views from Mankate Gut, where Job had his farm. He loved it all. Sim Daniel was not quick to give expansive expression to his thoughts, but when he did, his ideas were clear, straightforward, and born of an absolute conviction. The They say people are drawn naturally to good leaders. It was the Honorable Ivor Algernon Stevens, of revered memory, who at an NRP convention at Pinnis set out 4 reasons why Sim was a good leader. Sim, he said, cared for people. He was a man of compassion. In fact, it was a renowned business icon, Teddy Slack, of eternal memory, who in a conversation with Mr. Daniel on the Charleston Pier exclaimed these memorable words. Well, hey, Daniel, you really got a soft heart. You want to help everybody. And in his unique laconic style, Mr. Daniel's response was, what else I could do, sir? Ivor found, secondly, that Sim Daniel had the capacity for an immovable focus. Sim Daniel, such a public person, actually tried to avoid public notice and had little interest in pomp and circumstance. Ivor Stevens' third point was that Daniel had an awesome strength of spirit, which gave him the confidence to confront history. And finally, Ivor explained, Sim had a genuine sharpness of mind. In fact, it was the inimitable Irvin Brantley, a great friend who never failed to move Mr. Daniel to laughter, who made the claim that Sim Daniel was so sharp, he had the greatest capacity for anyone he knew to give the impression not to know things he well understood. Some say that was his lawyerly skill. Make no mistake, Daniel loved the law. He was known as an expert in conveyancing. It is arguable that few attorneys on the island arranged the volume of transfers that Mr. Daniel did. You know, families tell their children of the midwife who handled their birth. In Nevis, families introduce their children to Sim Daniel as a lawyer who put them on a plot of land. But let the record show also that Daniel throughout the Eastern Caribbean was considered by the legal fraternity one of the finest probate attorneys we have known. In the year 1984, when he piloted the financial services legislation, he reported to the Nevis Island Assembly that 75% of the legal transactions on the island derived from real estate law. He admitted that he was pleased at the prospect that lawyers would be able now to practice in a wider array of disciplines. But above all else, Sim Daniel loved constitutional law and is widely and properly regarded as a prime framer and architect of the 1983 Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis. Some weeks ago, Dr. Daniel came to North America for medical attention, and we spoke. He reminded me that Nevis lost its government in 1881, and that after 102 years, the 1983 Constitution provided Nevis with its own island administration, its own island assembly, and in Section 113 is enshrined the right to independence on its own. But he cautioned me. He said, you must not miss the other big point. The big point of which he was proud was that from that constitution, Nevis obtained its own consolidated fund and its own treasury to manage that fund. This is a constitution that was designed to be a beginning, a constitution that was supposed to be reviewed after 3 years. Whatever we think of it, it is a constitution that gives some sound to the Nevisian voice. It's a constitution that plants a seed for Nevisians to water. After 29 years, it remains the supreme law of our land. It says something about the framers of the document. It says something about the flexibility of the provisions of the Constitution. Sim Daniel entered politics with one objective: to stand up for the interests of an independent Nevis. Co-founder of the NRP, from 72 to 89, he was the chairman of the local council. From 75 to 83, he was a member of the Federal House of Assembly and was a federal minister of government from 80 to 89. From 83 to 92, he served as Premier of Nevis and member of the Island Assembly. It is Sim Daniel who has the distinction of being the only politician in the history of Nevis to represent every single constituency on the island. 75 to 80, he represented St. George's and St. James. In 83, he was elected to St. Thomas's. In 84, he was federal rep for St. Thomas and St. James. In 87, he moved to St. John's as the island representative. And in 89, he was a representative for St. John's and St. Paul's. No other politician in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, perhaps the Caribbean, has contested and won elections in every single constituency. The records show, and the elders testify, that from Butlers to Bath, from Newcastle to New River, in every village, on some street, in some alley, on some hill, in some valley, Nevisians throughout this land were embracing and voting for this one man, Daniel. But if we say that Daniel was a leader, and we do, and he was, then we must remember that a general is a general because they are soldiers. It is right that we take, if even but a moment, to remember those who walked the same darkness, who tilled the same soil, who woke at morning with the same desire. We remember the most honorable Ivor Algernon Stevens with reverence. We hold high the hands of our brother Arthur Evelyn. We ask history to include the name of Uriel Swanster. We remember our ladies, Cabell Jeffers, Georgette Seabrooks, our most worthy sister, the Honorable Berlin Clark of constant memory. We register the presence of Rowan Liebert and Gilbert Phillip. We whisper with a prayer of thanksgiving the names of those pioneers who prepared and planted the ground for us and who since have entered the gates of Jericho before us. Eustace Tessie Nisbet, Ralph Harris, Horace Liebert, Ralph Harris, Horace Liebert, Sonny Paris, and our brother Levi Morton. And in our most recent dispensations, the current leader of our country, the Honorable Joseph Parry, Mr. Phineas Griffin, are the same desire. We remember the most honorable Ivor Algernon Stevens with reverence. We hold high the hands of our brother Arthur Evelyn. We ask history to include the name of Uriel Swanster. We remember our ladies, Cabell Jeffers, Georgette Seabrooks, our most worthy sister, the Honorable Berlin Clark of constant memory. We register the presence of Rowan Liebert and Gilbert Phillip. We whisper with a prayer of thanksgiving the names of those pioneers who prepared and planted the ground for us and who since have entered the gates of Jericho before us. Eustace Tessie Nisbet, Ralph Harris, Horace Liebert, Ralph Harris, Horace Liebert, Sonny Paris, and our brother Levi Morton. And in our most recent dispensations, the current leader of our country, the Honorable Joseph Parry, Mr. Phineas Griffin, our brother Mr. Herman Liebert, and Mr. Julian Nisbet. But for Sim Daniel, politics was more than elections. Politics was about helping people. In his first speech in the Nevis Island Assembly in '83, he argued that Nevis was not just an economy, Nevis was a society. He took inspiration from Washington, George Washington, who said, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is a force." Dr. Daniel said that the force of government must rise from a vision. This was a vision to empower Nevisians. And so, my friends, Daniel thought that we needed to ensure that the government understood that where there was uncertainty, the government must bring belief. Where there was disillusion, government must be a force for hope, a force that brings all the people together for the common good, across backgrounds, across political allegiances, a force that offers justice and opportunity to all. Above all else, Daniel was determined that the government should help the Nevisian people feel good about themselves and about their land. And so he set out in a hurry to shape a Nevisian economy and society. I will say to you that it was the intention to indicate some of the things done by Daniel in government. I believe that the church has heard quite a lot about that. And so I will speak only of the Bank of Nevis, and then I will give you one other indication. Sim Daniel, who had introduced the financial services regime to Nevis in 1984, in order to complement these services, thought he would bring an investment group together for the Bank of Nevis. In 1985, the bank was formed with a capitalization of $250,000. Today, the Bank of Nevis employs 60 persons, has a capitalization of $54 million, controlling 50% of the market size. The Bank of Nevis, from 1985 to 2010, dispersed loans totaling $300 million and has assets of $400 million. This contribution stands as yet another example of the vision of this man, Daniel. The other indication is that when Sim Daniel came to office in 1980, 25% of Nevisian households had running water. When he left in 1992, 98% of Nevisian households had running water. We conclude by saying that the work of Daniel shows lessons in foresight, in courage, in patriotism, in gracious dignity. Today, the future of Nevis has a potential more dynamic than imagined a generation ago. Today, the memory remains. But it is a memory that ought to endure. For surely, my friends, we bring honor to ourselves and to our own land when we celebrate the memory of our noblest sons and daughters. There lingers a simple and undoubting conviction that such a noble son was Dr. Daniel, and that this majesty of character, this selfless devotion to the homeland, this life of public service should well commend this great man for posthumous consideration as the next national hero of St. Kitts and Nevis. The last time I came to this church, it was for the funeral service of Job Daniel, the father of Simeon Daniel. It turned out to be the only time I saw Dr. Daniel shed tears. When we went to the graveside, I approached him. I inquired as to his welfare. I used the quintessentially Nevisian euphemism. You all right, sir? He understood. He gave me a response I did not expect. He said he was reminiscing not of Job Daniel, the father. He was thinking of Job Daniel as a man who lived his life in Barnscott. And he said, to live your life in a small village like Barnscott and to do well, you have to be able to communicate, to trust people, to be decent and hardworking, and to mind your own business. He paused. He said to me, you have to be a good man. He said no more. But today, we can complete the thought. Today we say that a Daniel, a good man, came from Barnscott. A Daniel, a good man, did rise to change the trajectory of life for all our people, even those yet unborn. This Daniel, this good man, has heard the trumpet's call and is now on a journey across the river Jordan. He is chaperoned, we believe, by a cloud of angels. We usher him into St. Peter's Court, and we call him to the bar of higher service with our prayers, our thanks, and our commendations. His name was Simeon.
Victor J. Martin eulogizing Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel as only Victor J. Martin can. We've been with you since 6 o'clock this evening, reflecting on the life and times of national hero from Nevis, Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. A man who in 1983 started the Nevis Island administration as a government with $250,000. Let's take this phone call. Good evening, caller.
Good night, caller.
Night.
Night. Sorry to run kind of late. I've been listening all the time, but I didn't anticipate the eulogy would have been so long, which was very, very good anyway. And just want to give my little tribute to our late great leader, Simeon Daniel. I worked around these guys for years, and being in the executive as one of the younger members of the executive, Bobby Liebert, and the others. And one of the things I admired about the team, it was teamwork. And these guys were fearless. They worked hard together and protect one another, and also protect the good name of the party. I can talk about that. These fellows here worked hard when they were around. And well, the names were called already, so I wouldn't worry to go back to them. But I can tell you, they'll have their ups and downs at executive meetings. At the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, they left the meeting with one voice. One voice. That is a hallmark of great leadership and commitment from those fellows. And one of the things he mentioned about that I want to just talk about is the way and he gave this speech. I think it was this speech with the opening of the hotel, and he mentioned about the young people. He didn't leave them out, you know. The way he helped young people, he went out of the way to, you know, make sure that the vision get the work and that kind of stuff. Shows that he was interested in looking after our own local people. And I think that is the way any government should go. Any government should go. And the same thing with Mr. Parry. He did the same thing. He always, when they have the situation at the Four Seasons, he will go down and he will talk, and, you know, even in opposition, he will hear his voice and views on certain things. When others might say, get a bullhorn and go down and say, go back to work, he will go down and try and negotiate for the people. When the hotel was closed from the hurricane, he to ensure that the people were employed, even to help, you know, get work, supply work for them to do, and make sure that they were all employed. There was teamwork in NRP. Whenever NRP is in government, there is teamwork. There is teamwork. They always see about the island of Nevis, how they can improve and make sure that the island of Nevis go forward. And I believe that God is preparing Moses for this dispensation. I believe that there's a Moses that is in the making to deliver our people from the hard life that we are facing. And I believe, and I would be glad if it comes sooner rather than later. God, thanks for you. Thanks for this program. And it's really good, and, you know, it really opened the eye of all people who would have realized so many things that the NRP would have done, you know, during their tenure in government, and so this very, very good program. I certainly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. And we're out of time. It's 8:30. We did promise that we'll go until 8:30 this evening, paying tribute to Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel. He passed away on this date in 2012. And so we figured that we couldn't just allow the date to pass without paying tribute. Here is my phone line still going off. We have a couple of minutes left. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Carlisle.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Carlisle, first of all, let me just say this. You have done a tremendous job.
I try.
In this program tonight. And I don't think that those of us who don't do this understand what it takes for you to have produced such a show tonight. Thank you so much. It was certainly an educational show for me tonight. I'm calling because Dr. Simeon Daniel was a very close friend of my father. And having lived off of Nevis for many, many years and returning back, I came to understand much better what true caring and friendship was all about. One of the things I remember about Dr. Daniel was when my father opened up Fort Ashby Restaurant. Dr. Daniel came every single day for lunch. Sometimes he was accompanied by friends or whoever was visiting on island, and there were times when he came alone. And I remember asking my father, is he one of your business partners? And Daddy looked at me and he smiled and he says, why you ask me that? I said, because he comes every day. And not only did he come every day, but he literally sat there through the entire luncheon period. And he would talk. He engaged me in conversations. I didn't know him that well then, so I was very quiet. I listened more than I spoke. But he was a man of wisdom, of vision. He was a caring spirit. He was a humble man. And when he didn't visit there, he visited at our home. I often heard Daddies talk about him, even back when he lived in England. And you know what, Carlisle? We often give people their flowers when they're gone and they can't hear them. But give them anyway. Because I truly believe that the spirits that are up there in heaven are watching down and they're listening. And Dr. Daniel would have smiled. Perhaps in his humility, he probably would have thought we said too much tonight. But he would have smiled gently and nodded his head. Thank you for reminding us about what Dr. Daniel and Mr. Perry and the Nevis Reformation Party did before, because I think this is a pivotal time to remind us. As I listened to him go through all the things they'd done, I thought to myself, well, what has happened since 2012? Because I don't think anybody can come up with such a record since NRP has been out of power of what has happened in Nevis. I don't care how we butter it up and how we flour it up. We can't do it because it hasn't happened. Thanks again so much. And you know what? I understand the significance of today, but this show needs to be replayed again. This show needs to be replayed again. Thank you. So I leave that part to you, Carlisle.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Well, it's in the system, so I suspect that our technical team can have it slotted and have it repeated, not just once, but more than once. Because we have time periods when we don't have any live shows, so we can do that. Thank you very much, Carla.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much. No, I have to turn around and get ready for another show which should start in 4 minutes' time. So, I want to thank you again for being a part of Reflections on the life and times of Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, national hero coming out of Banscott in Nevis, and thanking his family for loaning him to us, the people of Nevis, and for him making Nevis what it is today. Thanks for being a part of the show.